All right, guys, so I get this mic in, unbox it, super excited about it, and then I see this one pretty massive issue that might just be a deal breaker. So this is the Sony ECM-M1, and I've done a few videos on shotgun mics or microphones because I use these things like crazy, but every so often there is one that just takes things to the next level. Honestly, the last one that I did that kind of felt that way was called the Track Shot. I think I've got it somewhere up here. Honestly, it's like a first generation of what Sony is doing with this mic right here. So basically they had two shotgun mics next to each other and they allowed you to physically move those mics around. The unfortunate part was that the audio quality on that, it sucked. Although Comica did just come out with a new shotgun mic with a built-in wireless module, which is pretty awesome. That one sounds good. So video coming out on that one shortly, but Sony, instead of having those movable mic capsules, has basically placed 4 mics on the top of this microphone, and then they have a switch on the back to be able to select the pattern, and it will use computers to analyze the audio from each mic and to create the pattern that you have selected. Now, in theory, I absolutely love the concept, although a lot of times I'm actually shooting things like interviews, weddings, events, things like that, and I'm pretty much always going to have the mic pointed at away from me or whatever the camera is capturing. So a typical shotgun mic in those scenarios will work absolutely fine. But when I'm doing things like content creation or BTS, this is absolutely amazing because I don't always know where the sound I want to record is coming from, and this lets me just to adjust it on the fly. And actually sometimes I won't even use a shotgun mic. I'll just use the internal camera mics on those because I know I want to record 360 and the internal mics on these suck. So this is a really cool tool to be able to do that. So let's break this down and see what is actually making it amazing. So the hardware on this, it's pretty different to pretty much every other shotgun mic that I've ever used because of the mic layout on the top. So I was pretty curious on what the quality would be, which we'll get to in a second. But the advantage is this is an extremely short microphone. It's about the same height as all of my other shotgun mics. Now, for me, I would actually prefer it to be just a little bit longer and less high because I use these on a gimbal all the time. And with the height, it can be an issue because when you put the gimbal forward, it can hit the back end of the gimbal. All of my shotgun mics do this, so it's no worse than those. I just would have been like a wish list for me. Now, it is pretty plasticky, which I'm sure it saves on weight. It just doesn't feel quite as rugged as most of my other shotgun mics, which happen to be metal. I've actually had one of those shotgun mics get stepped on and it survived. I'm not sure that this would suffer the same fate. But the shock mount also, it feels pretty good to me, honestly. I think a few people had some issues with the previous mics that Sony has put out, but this one, I haven't had any issues so far with it. It seems to be good. It's all internal, but it seems to hold up pretty well. Also, the dead cat for this, it actually fits pretty well. It takes a second to get on there, but once you do, it actually has a pretty good fit to it. And I actually think this is going to be a little important. This worries me on durability. So you just have these mic openings on the top, and I'm worried about rain, water, sand, any of that stuff. I'm a mechanical engineer, so just anytime I see something like this, it worries me a bit. Sony might have some awesome weather sealing on the inside or electronics that aren't even near this spot, so it might not be a big deal at all. I'm just saying I would play it safe and use this dead cat a little bit more often because I'm worried about sand and water kind of getting into these because it's right on the top of the entire thing. But unfortunately, the controls are where things really fall off a cliff for me. So you do have a few switches for a filter, and also you have like a noise cut 10 dB and a 20 dB on that left side. The right side is a analog to digital switch, and there is a USB port right here, although my computer wasn't recognizing the mic itself, so this might just be for firmware updates. I definitely wish we could use it as a USB mic, or if it had like a 3.5 millimeter output so we could use this with other things, but it does not look like that is going to be possible. This is really for on-camera use only. Now around the back you have this dial for selecting the pickup pattern, and bonus points for Sony for actually making this a lockable dial. It is still very plasticky and a little cheap feeling, but This is going to be a big deal having this lock. I haven't had any issues with it. Huge upside for me. And now we get to the major issue, and it is this volume knob. It is so freaking small. It is basically flush mounted to the microphone itself. There is maybe like an 1/8 inch opening to get your finger in there. I can't for the life of me figure out a way of actually adjusting this without making a crap ton of noise. And if it's on the camera, it's even worse. It's just something you can't really adjust while recording. And this is a big issue because if you're using this mic on the top of your camera, you cannot actually use like the built-in mic controls on the camera to adjust the volume. Even if this is set to manual, this mic will disable all of that function. So you are either going to set this to auto and have your levels completely in auto, or if you have it in manual, good luck. You're going to set your volume ahead of time, hopefully, and then leave it at that, because there is no way to just ride this dial while recording. Even changing the levels at all is just a major pain. So I do know that sounded super negative, but I actually am a huge fan of this mic. Being able to adjust your pickup pattern, that's massive. You don't need cables. There's nothing to plug in. You just throw it on your hot shoe. It is compact. It's light. It is amazing. Plus, Sony is actually being able to do things you can't do on most shotgun mics. So you have a left channel and a right channel with this pattern. So you can record a stereo image. Plus, you can actually record a stereo pattern with the front being the left channel and the back, whatever's behind the mic, being the right, so that you can kind of independently control those in post, and that is some very useful features.
So the more I film with this mic, the more that I like it. It makes things so much easier. I can do so much more than I could before. It's just an easy, compact, and super good quality mic. However, without that manual control, there are situations that I don't want to use this mic in. I just feel like I need constant levels and I can't adjust them at all using the mic itself. So for this kind of situation, like vlogging style or something like that, it works extremely well. I'm not behind the camera, I'm not monitoring the camera. But if you're behind the camera and monitoring the audio, that's where I desperately need a firmware update to allow manual control of my audio levels through the camera, or else this mic is just, it's missing something compared to other microphones that allow you to do that.
Really, my only issue with this mic is that the way things stand today, it only has one somewhat narrow application that it does super well, and that's being an on-camera mic in auto levels. And actually, you should check with the camera support for this, because it really is only going to work with Sony's new latest cameras, like in the last 2 to 3 years maybe. I think Sony's A1 was one of the first cameras that came out with this digital audio interface. That's not a limitation with the mic itself. It's just when Sony started adding the digital interfaces to their cameras. So definitely check that out to make sure it'll work with you. But you can't really use this off camera. My Rode shotgun mic, I'll sometimes use like a long extension cord to be able to mount it closer to my subject. Like I have a mic right here and the camera's way back there. You can also plug them into a wireless system when they have these 3.5 millimeter adapters. And actually, Caleb Pike has this really cool like 3D printed mount for the Rode NTG that works super well for turning that mic, that shotgun mic, into a wireless shotgun mic. So you're paying for a mic that really does one job, even if it does that job super well. And having all of these different direction profiles is really awesome. But if it can't leave your microphone, it means that probably the biggest use case is going to be like vloggers or single content creators. So yes, I would absolutely buy this mic for my camera if you are doing first-person video where you need to capture audio from the camera's perspective, especially if you are going to be talking from in front and behind the camera. And I'm going to narrow that down even more and say that only if you need to rely or can rely on auto levels. But you're probably going to need a mic or another mic for basically any use case that doesn't work. So if Sony can somehow allow like manual level control in the camera to be able to bypass this useless volume knob on this, I think the convenience of not having to use cables, having all of these different sound profile options, and this really compact mic is going to mean that it is going to be well worth it. But definitely let me know what you guys think of the new M1. I actually tested this with the new Sony a6700, which is awesome. So tons of content just went live actually. New Sony 7200 f4, tons of stuff. So make sure you're subbed over on YouTube. I have a bunch of BTS that I posted over on IG as well. So follow me there. Hit me up in the comments, all your questions, everything like that. And I'll catch up with you guys soon.